Can BYU shock the world and be this year's example of, let's say, Cincinnati? There is a big, big push to find this year's playoff buster. And CBS Sports says there's a real good chance it's the BYU Cougars. Now, I think we're all going to figure out who BYU is probably in the first 3 weeks of the season. But having said that, I do believe that BYU has a chance, Jake, to be the playoff buster this year. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think the schedule is what defines that. I don't even think, honestly, I don't even think it's a matter of opinion. You look at their schedule and you see the three big games on their schedule, and these are all teams that, two of the three definitively, and I believe Baylor will be somebody who is in the college football playoff conversation probably till the end. I don't know that they make it, but they'll be right in there. They'll definitely be competing. And so when you look at BYU's schedule, the reason I say definitively, yes, they can be your college football chaos team, if you will. They can be your college football, bracket buster, if you will, as they call it in basketball. The reason they can be that, and the reason I think they will be that, is because of the way the schedule pans out. You're going to get Baylor week 2, September 17th at Lavelle. If you win that game, that changes the fate of Baylor's season, no doubt about it. If you beat Oregon September 17th, if we watch them beat Oregon at Barbecue Pit Stop, right, that's going to change the fate of Oregon's season and their ability to definitively get to the college football playoff this coming season. And then you fast forward to Notre Dame, which is why we're sending you to this game. Notre Dame, that game right there, that's a huge game. And the reason for that is because of where it is on the schedule. My opinion is that being that it is the middle of the season, this is a game of consequence for Notre Dame. Because I think, if you're BYU and you lose this game, okay, yeah, not great. But at the same time, nobody's counting you into the college football playoff scene right now. Nobody thinks that BYU can get to the college football playoff. But if you go and beat Baylor, Oregon, and Notre Dame, those three teams, not only did you, I'm not going to say wreck their season, but you totally changed the path of their season. You've now solidified yourself as a team that can beat the big boys. And I feel like BYU goes through this every single year. Every year, heading into the season, everyone says, oh, well, they can't beat Texas. They can't beat Florida. They can't beat the big boys, And then what do we get? We get upsets. We get Taysom jumping over people. We get, these crazy games that BYU seemingly puts out. So that's why I say that the schedule to me definitively says that they can be that chaos team. But I think another interesting angle on this is the Big 12 side of the conversation. I mean, think about it. If somehow, some way, BYU is a one-loss team this year, somehow, some way, I know the odds, and everyone says, no, that's not possible. Let's say it happens, that they're a one-loss team this year, heading into the Big 12 next year. How awesome would that be for Baylor last year to be in the college football playoff conversation, then to have BYU this year be in the college football playoff conversation, two staples in the Big 12 being in that conversation? That's exactly why BYU has everything to play for this year.
But can you say that BYU is a staple of the Big 12?
Well, not yet, but I'm saying if you beat Baylor and you have a 12 or whatever this would be, 11-1 or whatever they would be. If you have a beefy season like that headed into the Big 12, I think
beefy.
Yeah, a legitimate season, a double-digit win season. If you have a legitimate season as you head into the Big 12, you have to be considered a staple of the Big 12. It's not an option.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts of this conversation is what you said. Every year we have this conversation about BYU. And what's interesting is this is the last year we're going to have this conversation about BYU because they're no longer an independent after this season. And I think that's a significant change. But I also think it's a significant motivator for a lot of kids on this roster in Provo because a lot of kids on this roster will never play a game of consequence in the Big 12. And I think there's a lot of focus on not letting this season drift away because that'd be very easy to do. I think as we've talked about for weeks now on this show, you have to make sure that you don't just overlook this season. Now, having said that, directly to your point, Jake, I think when you look at some of the games on this schedule, now, obviously, you have the lookover games. I think South Florida is a game that you cannot overlook here. But I think when you look at Baylor, Notre Dame, Oregon, like that group of games, that's when we're going to find out who this team is. If I said to you, hey, Will they lose before the bye week? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think they'll definitely lose before their bye week, and that's just because their bye week is so late. That's the problem. Your bye week is what is it? I think the 11th of November or whatever it is. I mean, you're gonna be tired. You're gonna be beat up. You're like injuries this year will be more of an issue, I think, as we get into the middle of this schedule than they were in past years because your bye week is so late. But, I think another game of consequence outside of Baylor, Oregon, and Notre Dame is Arkansas. Arkansas doesn't get talked about a lot, but they're a good team. That's a team that you will battle. So, again, I just think if I'm BYU and I'm looking at this schedule, I think week 1 South Florida, that's a must win. That's a game I would expect you to win, frankly. And then I look at Baylor. You got a point to prove against Baylor. Let's be honest. Let's not forget what happened last year. You went to Baylor. They didn't respect Jaron at all in his running ability, and they were just playing easy defense. That's what they were doing, and I just think that BYU can beat these guys absolutely. Oregon, on the other hand, that's a game that I think is going to be awesome because I think that's a true measuring stick game. Very much the same way Oregon against Ohio State early in the year last year was a measuring stick for Oregon. I think it's that same thing for BYU. So,
what do you mean when you say that's a measuring stick game? Are you talking about size, talent?
No, I just think program versus program. I think that, hey, we're BYU. Can we go and play a Pac-12 powerhouse and win? Can we be competitive in that game? Because I'm telling you, that's what this season is about for BYU. Yeah, obviously you always want to try to get into the college football playoff. You want to win as many games as possible. But in the bigger picture, from a Big 12 standpoint, as BYU goes that way and heads that direction, this season is all about showing what you're capable of. What can we expect out of BYU in the first season in the Big 12? Well, if you come out, you beat Baylor, Oregon, if you can beat Notre Dame somehow, that's gonna be a great thing for your program.
Brody, I'm telling you right now, the game on their schedule that worries me by far the most is Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I probably overvalue Baylor too much, but I think Baylor is going to be a handful. I mean, I don't care who you are. I don't care where the game's played. I think Baylor is going to be one of the best teams in the conference, obviously. But I think that BYU, now that game's in Provo, right? I mean, you look up and down the schedule and you try to find the most likely games that BYU is going to lose. I don't think there's any doubt that you have to look at that Baylor game and say, yeah, there's a good chance that Baylor's just a better football team. But I also think that Baylor's going to be in for a hell of a game. I think that BYU, it goes without saying, this BYU team is tenacious. This BYU team plays with an incredible amount of heart. You come to elevation at BYU in Provo. It is intimidating. Again, that game is an 8:15 Mountain Time kickoff. That's 9:15 in the Central Time Zone. I think that's got to be an advantage for BYU. That game is on ESPN. It's a national TV game. It's a huge game. I think BYU has to win that game. I think, obviously, if we're talking about going to playoffs and we're talking about having a major impact, I just think the world of Baylor. I think what we saw last year is not the one-off. That's just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're BYU, I think you got to look at that game. I think Arkansas is another game, as you pointed out. I mean, obviously that's a marquee opponent. But I think on this schedule, the most difficult games for BYU to win and get up for are going to be your second-tier teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be – South Florida is not a second-tier team, in my opinion. But you look at the Blast State. You look at games like that.
Wyoming.
You look at Wyoming.
Utah Tech. Liberty.
Those are games that you have to be ready to rock and roll.
East Carolina.
You have to be ready to go on those games. But I'm telling you right now, if there was one game on this schedule that worries me, and if you want an indicator of how difficult it's going to be for BYU to compete in the Big 12, look no further than the Baylor Bears.
Facts.
That team is going to be good.
And that's why I say that's the best the Big 12 has to offer, right? I mean, that's that's Baylor. If you can come out and improve upon your performance from last season, and this can be a tight game where, you're not letting them walk away from you in the second half like you did last year. If you can do all those things, and even if you lose the game, but you lose it by one possession, let's say, and it was a close game, highly competitive, good football game. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Like these games where you're down 20 and we're garbage time for most of the second half. BYU can't have that. But if you're 5 minutes left in the fourth and Baylor scores, to seal the game, that's a good football game. I think even at that point, your program looks good. You lose the game, but you were highly competitive right down to the end. I think that's what the Big 12 is looking for. And so as much as I would love for BYU to win this football game, I think in the big picture what's more important is just simply to fight them to the end, even if you lose at that point. And that's why I say, looking at the schedule, you don't have to be a double-digit win team. That doesn't have to happen. But I think there is a path there. It's going to require another level out of Jaren. It's going to require a healthy offensive line for like most of the year. We can't have, I love Harris LaChance, but we can't have Buddy out for weeks on end. We can't have those oddball injuries that come up. And I know there's nothing. The problem is there's nothing you could do about those. That's the thing. Like when you get rolled up on as an offensive lineman, what are you going to do about that?
Well, BYU's got competition on that offensive line. I mean, every guy on that line, for the most part, every guy on that line is right now today competing for reps. And I think, again, the perfect example with Baylor. Dave Aranda knows how to build a defense. He gets the most out of his guys. And if BYU has any chance of beating Baylor that night, in Provo, they're going to have to stand up front because I think, and I don't care how much turnover you have on that Baylor offense, the game's going to be won in the lines. It's going to be one up front. Yeah, it always is.
Yes.
It's going to be one up front, and Baylor's going to be after that quarterback's ass. Like, I think, and by the way, when we're talking about BYU winning or losing, Jaren's got to be healthy. Because Jaren Hall has Heisman potential, but potential's meaningless if you're not on the field.
Agreed.
Your best ability is your availability, and Jaren Hall over his career at BYU has not been available nearly enough. So let's see if he can do that. But I think the key to this BYU team is going to be health, and they have to win the battle in the trenches. They have to be good up front. On offense, the line's got to stay healthy. They have more depth there. It's funny listening, to the people talking about BYU's depth, and I don't believe in star ratings and recruits. I don't believe in that at all. I really just do not. Okay. I think give me a 2-star recruit that has a great developmental staff. That kid can play with any 5-star recruit on the field, right? The only intangible that you can't teach is speed. BYU's got speed. BYU's got depth. BYU is better offensively, deeper offensively than they were at any point last year. Mm-hmm. And I know, Tyler Allgeier's, playing on Sundays, not Saturdays. Totally understand that. This team is going to be fine offensively if they stay healthy. Yeah. I think they're the top of the water for me. The best this team could do is one loss. I think you're asking far too much for BYU to open with USF, Baylor, Oregon, and then Notre Dame in the Shamrock Series. I just think that's an awful lot. That Wyoming and that Utah State game, if that game was in Logan, I'd tell you that's a game you need to be careful of.
Yeah.
That's a game you feel like you might
That's what
lose.
I'm saying. A lot of these games, your Baylors, your Utah States, like these are at Lavelle. Like these are in Provo, and that's why I say on paper, this schedule looks really daunting. I mean, it does. From BYU's perspective, I would guess that this schedule looks pretty difficult. But when I look at this, I say, okay, you just got to get to October 15th. Once you're at October 15th and you get through the Arkansas game, listen to the back end of the schedule. And this is why I think one loss is possible. So after Arkansas, you've got Liberty, East Carolina, Boise State, Utah Tech.
I'm sorry. Who?
East Carolina.
Boise
State.
Okay, go ahead.
So you got 4 wins right there. What should be 4 wins, no doubt about it. I don't want to see Idaho State crap come through this schedule like we did last year. I want an ass kicking against Liberty, East Carolina, and Boise State and Utah Tech. You think Stanford's a little better than I think they are? I think Stanford should be circled as a win as well.
But the other thing I want to see, and I know we've talked about this as well ad nauseum when we talk about BYU football.
Right.
I want to see 60, 70-point output against
Utah Tech. That's what
I'm
saying, dude. Light these guys up, man.
I want BYU to make a statement, and I feel like Kalani's one weakness is he's a bit too nice.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at some of the things that went on last year on the field, the disrespect, I think you need to come out and you need to punch some people in the face and you need to prove a point. Because if this team only loses one game, if you lose one game, you should be in the conversation for a college football playoff spot. Jaren Hall should be in the conversation for Heisman Trophy.
What did we talk about last season? We had huge debates on this show about this very topic last season. We talked all about how the college football playoff committee works, right? How do they rank teams? How do they choose teams? How does that process work? I got news for you. It's not complicated. It's a couple of people sitting around a table, looking at schedules, talking about what they remember. Maybe looking at some highlights. So when you beat South Florida, you lose to Baylor, you beat Oregon, you beat Wyoming, you beat Utah State, and let's say somehow you beat Notre Dame, right? You're above 500. I know. You're above 500.
Oh my God.
Going to Arkansas, right? So let's say you lose to Arkansas, and now you're 500, or maybe you're one above 500. This 4-game stretch right here could very much determine where you land as far as bowl games are concerned, as far as your reputation is concerned. So I don't want to see, hey, we're up by 10 going to the half against Liberty, so we're going to take Jaren out and, we're going to be nice. I don't want to see that, dude. I want 35-plus point spreads on these mediocre teams because you are better than that.
Look at Caleb Harrison. The Utah Jazz TV star that wears hats. By the way, Caleb, you missed the show yesterday, I think. Bro, the braids are amazing. We were talking about this.
Yes, they are.
Congratulations on being the lucky charm for Kyle Kuzma.
Mm-hmm.
And it, again, is disappointing you didn't get him on the show.
Are people Myron?
You say that you listen to the show, you're a fan of the show, but you don't bring us Kyle Kuzma. I don't understand it.
Anyway, the Monty Show?
Yeah, the Monty Show. Thank you. But Caleb makes a really good point. BYU almost has to be perfect to have to make the college football playoff.
Yeah, so you can't afford
I totally agree,
I
Caleb.
completely agree. You can't afford to only beat Liberty by 10 points. That's not Jaren Hall against Liberty, as an example. That's 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, lighting them up type stats. Because the reason you need that is so that later in the year, when you've earned your right to be in a bowl game and maybe if you got insane and you were just in the conversation for the college football playoff, they're not going to remember 30 points against Liberty. They're going to remember 65-70 against Liberty.
And we talked about this last year, and people said that we were wrong. Okay, well, that's fine. But I'm not here to be nice. I'm not here to win Mr. Nice Guy awards. I'm here to win national championships.
What did you say? Do you want to be nice or do you want to win football games?
It's that simple. Because you can't – I don't know that you can do both. I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't know that you can do both. Spencer Smith says BYU's got to go 11-1 with a loss to Baylor. That's it. I'm confident this year. Love you guys, man. Thanks, Spencer. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here. Let's see. Who else? Let's go back to the top here. Kurt Meyer says, good morning. JP Shanahan says, morning, guys. Why did it take you so long to finally admit on camera that Jake is your son?
I don't think it took long. I just think it's not something we talk about a ton, to be honest with you. Yeah,
okay,
I don't.
Listen, here's the story. His mom's a hooker in Casablanca. Her and I met one night in the back of a covered wagon, and we made magical love. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said hooker. A bar matron. What do you mean? Why did it take so? What are you talking about?
It's not like he was avoiding it or something. It just It's not like
I already suspected, but you were always so cryptic about it.
What?
God, we've talked about this 1,000 times.
Yeah, I'm not even trying to be cryptic about it. I'm not trying to be weird about it. I don't think we've been cryptic about it. I mean,
No.
I think what it is, honestly, is that it just doesn't get talked about a lot. I just don't think it's that big of a thing on the show.
Okay, wait. All right, welcome to the Monty Show where Jake's my son. Okay, cool. Talking BYU football. Are you kidding me?
I'm not trying to be cryptic.
What are you talking about? Exploring with Ben and Sam says, oh, we're ready for BYU, parentheses, I hope. You better hope. Neville93 says, good morning, my brother. What's up, my friend? Greasy Hands Auto, Sean Butterfield. Good morning.
What's up, Sean?
Karen Montemayor, another one of my love children, says, good morning.
Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, casuals. Can I please get a casual shirt or at least a maple bar since you guys are doing a cut? If not, I'll speak with your manager again.
Hey, guys.
Exactly
Dude,
right.
a maple bar this morning would have been.
I'm fat. Kanai Johnson says, good morning, fellas. Speaking of Don, we've seen him working on his mid-range game, but what about his defense?
Well, here we go.
Wait, you want to play that right now?
We can do it now. We can do it later. I don't care, man. Whatever.
We'll play a video coming up here in a minute that talks about his defense. Teddy Wayman, good morning to you with a $5 tip. Morning, man. I'm going camping and about to lose phone service. Appreciate the show and hope y'all have a great weekend. Teddy,
Hey, be safe, buddy.
Talk to you soon, Teddy. Good to see you. Steve Peterson says, welcome to the Monty Show with fruits of my loins.
Fruits of my loins.
Now, with all due respect.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
Drink. With all due respect, Steve Peterson. Kurt Meyer says, so Jake is the result of Cougar Tales? Go Maple.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like this thing, JP Shanahan, what are you talking about?
I don't get it. I really, I mean, it's not something that like he's
We're hiding
from. Like, I don't think we're hiding it at all.
Come on, get out of here. Dead Collector says, I'm just worried about New York. And why? What do you mean?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's a Donovan thing, but like, be more specific. What do you mean?
I'm you know.
Or is that a reference to the comment?
Dead Collector says, I'm just worried about BYU's running game. I hear the hype, but man, Algier will be hard to replace. He will, but I think Chris Brooks will do a nice job with that.
But listen,
that's a guy that's experienced. He's got big carries and big games.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't want to forget about Pini Katoa either. I mean, that's a guy that's experienced. Like, and if you look at the other running backs, you look at guys like Jackson McChesney, who's been waiting, it seems like, for 10 years.
Yeah.
Jackson McChesney, I don't know why. He feels like a guy who's been at BYU since, like, he and Lavelle recruited him. And,
yeah.
I mean, anyway. But, yeah, I would not sleep on the 1-2 punch of Brooks and Katoa. I think the running game will be fine.
Yeah, and I also think you can't forget that you know, while Tyler Algier was an absolute beast, on paper has done it better than anyone ever has at BYU. You got to remember that offensive line was a huge reason why he was able to do that, and that's why I say I don't care who you are. If you've got a massive hole to run through, you're going to be in a good place. Now, Tyler Algier's ability to absorb contact and get to
that says Jake, who is Monty's son. That's your new Chiron.
Thank you. See that? See what he's doing here? He's really trying to clarify, what's happening. Anyway, Tyler Algier's ability to absorb contact, much like your ability to absorb contact, was at a high level, and I think that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see out of these backs. Can Katoa bring that level of physicality? You know, what do we get out of the other guys? And this is why I say, the running game has to be there because, again, Jaron Hall will not be successful if he doesn't have at least 2.5 to 3 seconds to stand there and serve it.
I agree.
You know, like you can't have him just being swarmed constantly.
Spencer Smith leaves us a $1.99 tip. Spence, appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
have a great weekend. I love your avatar, though. It's like Spencer. I'm going to assume that's you. It's Spencer just waving goodbye. Bye.
I saw it.
Yeah, by the way, where's the other penny? You couldn't leave us $2? I got kids to feed, obviously. Jake's my son, remember? Okay.
Relentless.
I need to stop.
Relentless, dude.
I just need to stop.
Fuck one, marry one, kill one. Go.
You know, I'm just telling you. Again, his mom was a circus performer. We met. She swung from the trapeze.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I ignored the sign that said, don't feed the animals. It is what it is. Hey, baby. Mark... So wait, your mom was a bar matron in Casablanca.
Yeah.
She's now a circus performer.
I love that show.
I'm running out of ammo here, man.
Yeah.
I'm running out. Come on, Cube. I'm running out. Mark Ruckert says, great feeling about this season for both BYU and Utah. However, getting to the college football playoff will require great coaching, few injuries, and a lot of luck. Well, luck plays a huge part of it.
Definitely.
But I do think your point about coaching, I mean, I don't know that there is a state in the union right now today that can boast Kalani Sitake and Kyle Whittingham type coaches. I don't. Whether that is, I mean, pick it. Texas, Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Like there's not another setup like Utah and BYU. And obviously with the Utes, I mean, you have a situation where you're coming off of a Rose Bowl performance that was scintillating. It's one of the best Rose Bowls I ever remember.
Yeah.
So I look at Utah. Utah, the thing that stands out to me about Utah is that I wonder how high they can raise the bar. Because there's no reason to think that they can't beat USC. There's no reason to think that they can't win this conference. I mean, it's funny. We were talking to our friend Brian yesterday about the Utes.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how there's a chance that Kyle Whittingham could not be the coach this year. Had last season not turned around so dramatically, he may have retired if last season went into a dumpster fire.
Right.
I mean, if they don't make that magical run under Cam, if they don't go to the Rose Bowl, if they don't win the conference championship,
Yeah.
if that doesn't happen, is Kyle Whittingham the head football coach at the University of Utah this morning?
Yeah, I don't know,
I
man.
think I could make the argument he's not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there was definitely a lot of rumors. We talked all about it last season about how retirement was definitely a threat to the program from Kyle Whittingham's standpoint. But again, going through their schedule, it's no secret, and the program has talked a lot about it. Kyle's talked about it. Cam's talked about it. You've got plenty of other players who have talked about the fact that Florida's week 1. And I do think they're going to beat Florida. It's my opinion. You're going to go to Gainesville, and you're going to win that football game. And I think the reason for that is because your defense is going to be on lock. I think what the strategy, just based on what I've seen, again, I'm not able to go to practice, obviously, but based on what I see online, the conversations, what's going on, and what we know about Kyle Whittingham, defense is first. And I think if defense is first, the game plan is going to be going to Gainesville with your defense on the same page, be stout, be disciplined, and then put your offense in a position to finish them off, So I could easily see this Florida game being a low-scoring game. I'm talking about like 15, 20 points for the Utes, maybe 10 points for Florida, maybe. I could easily see that. I could see some turnovers happening. Like, there's a lot of ways that this game could go sideways, but I think that Florida game is a win. I look at the rest of this schedule, and while, yes, on paper it looks daunting and everything, I'm going to apply the same logic from the BYU schedule that I do to the Utah schedule, which is, hey, you should – so I think you're going to win in week 1 against Florida. You're going to beat Southern Utah. San Diego State is always a grind, but I think that's a football game you should win.
Well, you know what? That, in all honesty, that's that game.
Yeah.
That you look at on your schedule, you're like, is that the game that derails you?
Because after that, you've got 3 gimmies. So San Diego State really is that first one after Florida, where you're like, hey, on paper we should win this game, but San Diego State has always been a proven team that will give you trouble. You know?
But if I look at that San Diego State game, I mean, the Florida game. Listen. I think you have a lot on the line, obviously at Florida, but this is not Steve Spurrier's Florida Gators.
Correct.
That's not who this is. So I feel like that's a winnable game. That's a statement game because Florida still has some cachet.
Well, it's week 1. That's the thing.
Well,
like, it's not like this is week 8 where you're prepped and everyone's good to go. Like, this is week 1. Like, week 1 usually is, hey, there might be some mistakes made. Like, we got to work out some kinks in our offense. Like that type of thing. But you don't have time for that this year, and that's why I think this schedule has, while it's difficult, yes, I do think it has a lot of opportunity in it for Utah. You're 8th in the country in preseason ranks right now. Right? So people respect you. People think you're a top 10 team, but just hear me out. Let's say you beat Florida. You're going to beat Southern Utah. You beat San Diego State, Arizona State, Oregon State, and UCLA. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-0 heading into the SC game. If you're 6-0 heading into SC, and let's say you beat SC and you're 7-0, dude, you're looking at being 8, 9, 10-0 heading into Oregon, potentially. That's why I think Utah has a really nice schedule. That's why I think it's full of opportunity, because if you can accomplish that, you're going to be in a phenomenal position.
Well, and I think, Mahmoud Diabate coming over from Florida gives them tremendous speed, sideline to sideline speed at linebacker. And, look, I think that gives them, a bit of an advantage because you're losing Devin Lloyd. But I look up and down this depth chart. Van Filliger's got to have a huge season.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to figure out who's going to get after the quarterback, because again, I go up and down this list and I look at Junior Tafuna. I know what I'm getting there. That's a kid that is gonna be there. Listen, defensively is not the question. I will again say, when I look at Utah and I look at this depth chart, the biggest question for Utah is how much production are they getting from Baylor? To me, do they have the speed to take the top off the defense outside? Because with Brant Keithy, Dalton Kincaid, Cam Rising, you're going to run the football effectively. I don't think anybody doubts that. My question is, when I look at the great Phil Steele Bible, I look at the ratings on these wide receivers, Vele, Ennis, those are the two guys, and really it's Devon Vele that's going to have to step up and make a huge difference. I don't see any reason. I don't think it's unreasonable to sit here and wonder if we have two college football playoff teams. Because until BYU loses multiple games, because I agree with Caleb, I agree with you, I think one loss puts them in position, depending on who that one loss is.
They'll be in the conversation at least,
But who are they going to lose to, and how are they going to lose that game?
Yeah.
Right? And are they going to come out and prove a point against the Utah Techs of the world? That to me is a huge thing. So, Mark, I think you're exactly right. Spencer Smith, with a $10 tip now.
Thank you,
says
Spencer.
BYU and Utah meet in the playoffs. Unlikely, but it would be badass. Oh, my God.
Find a way to play the Holy War. That's all I have to say.
You would knock the earth off of its towel.
Yes.
Are you kidding? The globe would stop spinning. If BYU and Utah met in a playoff game,
dude,
guy, come on. So, Rance. And then Rance comes in with some levity and says, Utah schools are relevant in college football.
Well, that's nice.
So wait, let me get this right. You won the Pac-12 championship. You went to the Rose Bowl. You were within a snap of beating Ohio State. Nah, that's not relevance. I mean, you know what? That's it. Shut the show down. Right? Well, why are we here?
Well, we already restarted the show once.
You know what? Shut the show down. We're out of here.
Pack everything up.
All right, I'm going to turn the lights back on.
Okay, thank you.
I feel better.
We're getting somewhere.
Rance says the Big 12 is a downgrade. A downgrade to who? Rance also says they're not done trading, blowing up the team. Okay. He says, worry about defense. Running back's never been an issue. The defense for BYU is a very big issue. I would agree with that. I think BYU, Malik Moore and company got to cover.
Yeah.
It's that simple. You want to win games? Cover. You got to cover. You got to show you can run. You got to show you can cover.
Y'all feel me?
I think BYU and Utah are very similar defensively. They're going to be good up front. You're going to get good linebacker play. You're going to get, in my opinion, Cole Bishop's one of the best safeties nobody knows about.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. BYU's got to prove they can run and cover in the secondary. Because other than that, I think as far as BYU goes, you've got a phenomenal wide receiver room. I think you've got depth at running back. I think you have incredible depth on the line. I think you have a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback in Jaron Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Can you cover?
I don't want to see.
If this team can cover.
Dude, I don't want to see safeties being 20 yards in the wrong spot. I'm just going to put it that way. That happened too many times last year.
Yep. I agree. All right, a couple more on this, and then we got to move on. Let's see. Patrick Bourne says the Utah Packers. We do not like ayahuasca tea in this state, so
y'all want to play.
Can't do the Green Bay Packers, with all due respect. Let's see.
With all due respect. Did you see how he worked that in a little bit?
That was brilliance.
Yeah, I've been immunized.
That was brilliance. Brandon James says, I want what he's having. Exactly right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly right. Jeremy Bolton says, morning, boys. LOL, a snap away from beating an Ohio State team sweet. Let's celebrate a loss. Oh, please. Oh, please. Ohio State was missing its starting 27 players.
You're casual.
Who cares?
Doesn't matter, dude.
Who cares? Who cares? I don't care. It was one of the best Rose Bowls I've ever seen. And if Cam Rising's healthy, Utah's going to the Pac-12 playoffs or the the college football playoff.
Hello.
They're in. If they beat Ohio State, they're in.
Yeah.
Are you?
That's not even a conversation.
If they beat Ohio State last year, are they not more than 8th in the country right now? One snap. Cam Rising stays healthy. This is a different conversation.
You're a top 5 team right now if you beat Ohio State.
Yeah, anyway. Zach Thornton says BYU's defensive line needs to be great. It does, because, and I think that's relative. I agree with you. It always needs to be great. But if BYU has struggles in the secondary again, and I agree with you, I'm tired of watching guys out of position. I think Malik Moore's got a lot of potential. I think that's a cat that can.
But I also think, like, for BYU, too often for their defense, you're playing 2 high safeties, right? Like that's been their setup. And I think as a defense, you have to be disciplined enough with your assignments on the back end to play single high safety sometimes. Like, you got to have that ability from time to time so that you can get that extra guy in the box and you can go and get the quarterback. That, like, you have to be able to do that. But to do that, you can't have missed assignments when you're playing too deep. Like, that's not going to work. That can't happen.
I just think this front 7 at BYU, and I'm talking about, guys like Tyler Batty, talking about guys like Ben Bywater, talking about, Keenan Peely, like, you look up and down the Peyton Willigers of the world, they're going to be on the football. This defense is going to be on the football. There's no question about that. I look at the secondary, and I look at what you have to accomplish, and I look at what you have on the field talent-wise. This is my main question. And I've asked this repeatedly about this particular coaching staff, and this is one of the main complaints that people have with Tuiaki. Can you develop secondary players? You always have good linebackers at BYU. You always seemingly have size and athletic ability on the defensive line. You can't cover my mom last year. With all due respect. See,
hey guys.
Anyway, the point is, you have struggled to cover. You have struggled to be the athlete. And that's the thing when I talk about star rating. This is why I just don't care about star rating. If you get recruited to play football at BYU, you are an athlete. You're an athlete, right? The thing that stands out to me, though, is that it's great you're loaded at linebacker, and it's great you're really good up front. But I personally believe in Malik Moore. He can't be the only guy back there.
Correct.
I mean, you got to show me that you took a bunch of, white guys and you made them defensive backs. Right? Like, that's the knock on BYU. Well, all these missionaries, they're 37 years old. They're married. They've got like 11 kids and they can't run. Is that the narrative that's going to play out? Or are we going to actually see quality coverage where I agree with you? Can we play man defense on the back end at BYU?
No.
Are we going to have to play high safeties? Are we going to have to play zones? Are we going to have to help? Are we going to have to rotate guys high? Like
you should be able to play man and be fine. You should be able to do that.
Is a guy like Chaz Ayu down in the box, or is he dropping all the time?
And that's why I say the Baylor game is a statement game. Baylor threw it all over you. Baylor threw it over the top several times. Yeah. And that's because your safeties had no idea where to be. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think, the thing that I struggle with is this idea that, like, Judy Lawley has to come in here and he has to be good. He has to play, and he has to play well. And I think one of the things that you're going to see is, my question is, very simply in football terms, are you a nickel and dime defense? Are you constantly in nickel and dime? Because if you are, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
You're not winning. You're not winning 10 games in nickel and dime. You're just not going to do it. You have to be able to man. And the other thing is, what are your coverage abilities in the red zone?
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I hated about this defense was that is the injuries, number one, obviously. But I don't know. I could go on and on.
Yeah.
We need to get on the field and we need to see this team cover.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Correct.
That's absolutely the bottom line. I just, let's see. Jake Brandon says linebackers are loaded this year. The D-line is healthy too. Yeah. Yeah, Harris LeChance is a critical player on the offensive line. It's that simple. He is massive human being. He is a guy that is good. He is quality, but can he stay healthy?
Bench.
800 pounds. Can they stay healthy? Can you get, can Clark Barrington play every week? What about Connor Pay? Like, can you find me 5 guys and then 3 more behind them that can step in and not miss a beat? Because you look at the guys that you have, your tackles should be really, really good.
Yeah.
Your tackles should be excellent. And with a guy like Jaron Hall in the backfield, you don't need 10 seconds of pass pro.
No.
Give me 3 good seconds. Give me 5 good seconds. Because when Jaron Hall, and again, one of the things I want to see, speaking of development, I want to see Jaron Hall be a much better thrower of the football. And, his deep ball. Okay, cool. Show me touch and accuracy underneath.
Yes.
Show me better decision-making and step out of bounds instead of playing linebacker.
Put it where it should be for your receiver to get 5 extra yards after the catch.
Because again, when you look at the Pukas and the Gunners and you look at Cody Epps is a stud waiting to happen. Cody Epps is a kid that I think can absolutely positively be as productive as any player on this roster.
Mm-hmm.
He can be as productive as and again, I know I believe in guys far too much. I get emotional about players like on it in college football. I love it. Cody Epps is a guy I get attached to. I want to see that kid play football.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got talent in the wide receiver room. You do. And the Jaron Hall's got to perform now. Like all these questions, they come down to one simple thing. Did you have a good spring? Did you have a good summer? And are you going to have a good fall? Because that's where these games are won. You're not beating Baylor on the field that day that you play Baylor. You beat Baylor the day last season ended. You beat Baylor the day BYU is beating Baylor, the day they decided not to sleep in and they went and they hit that bench. They beat Baylor in the summer when they chose, hey, you know what? I'm going to run this extra sprint. Hey, I'm not going to eat at Cubby's anymore. I'm going down the street and I'm getting me some fresh. I'm going to eat some greens today. That's when you beat Baylor. Did they make those decisions? Did they do that? Because if they did that, if they lifted all them weights, what's the old saying? This is why we lift all them weights.
This is why.
See what he did there?
Do you even lift?
This is why, right? But that's what you do. And you make good choices. You work your ass off. You develop yourself. That's what top-tier football programs do. You want to win? You want to win a Big 12 championship in the next 5 seasons? You better be choosing weightlifting over sleeping or video games. Or hey, let's go play some VR. Let's go Halo on VR and stuff. Nah, bro. Let's go get back day in. Let's go get leg day in. Let's go run the hill real quick. Then we can play VR, right? Like, hey, let's not eat at Cubby's. Let's go eat at Jersey Mike's.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We're not having the tri-tip sandwich. We're having the number 17 veggie special. That's what I'm saying.
Fat.
Anyway. All right, let's keep going. Greg Hawkins, what's up?
Gregory.
What's up?
Back on U.S. soil, sir.
Greg Hawkins is home. He says, sup, casuals. Sup.
You're casual.
What's it like to listen to the show at a reasonable time?
Yeah, like in the state of Utah. Jeremy Bolton says, LOL freaking UAB, but BYU isn't celebrating a loss. If you don't watch the Rose Bowl last year, you'd think Utah won.
Bro.
But see, everybody watches because it's the Rose Bowl.
Because it's the Rose Bowl.
Jeremy Bolton he's showing up on the show today.
Jeremy,
like
you're
salty.
I love you, bro, but you're being salty is the best way I would say about it. Like I think you're not celebrating a loss. You're saying, hey, we got to the pinnacle and we came up one play short.
Listen. Utah. Anyway, Utah won the Pac-12 championship. Aaron Lowe, that situation should have broke most teams. Let's just be honest about it.
Yeah.
It didn't. You come back, you lose quitter noodle arm quarterback because he can't hang with whale's vagina. Cam Rising shouldn't have come in and won. He should have just come in and taken snaps, and they should have gone away, and Witt should have retired. And
I say I'm just fired up to be here today.
program should have fallen apart. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. They chose not to do that. They chose to do hard better, right? So what they did is they worked harder. Cam Rising was ready. Cam Rising stepped in. They didn't not only miss a beat, but they got better. And I don't care what kind of Rose Bowl it was and who played. They won the Pac-12 championship. They went to the Rose Bowl, and if Cam Rising doesn't get hurt, well, he did. Okay, so some guy you've never seen play football came in and almost beat Ohio State.
I'm for real.
And I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and knock Utah last year. They earned my respect last year.
Yeah.
They earned it. They went to the Rose Bowl. They went blow for blow with Ohio State. Can BYU step on a field today and go head-to-head with Ohio State? Probably not. Probably not. And again, yes, I realize the streak came to an end last year. It's unfortunate we're not going to play the Holy War this year. But what I'm telling you is Utah earns your respect.
Yeah.
Utah earns your respect. If you can't respect the achievements, the rise out of adversity that this club went through last year. Come on. Caleb, Utah and BYU have been in the top 18 mix consistently the last few seasons. Yeah, they have. Yes, absolutely they have. Michigan State Spartans kind of falling off. Caleb, listen, it's bad enough that you put pepperoni on pizza. Now you want to roll in here talking about Sparty. By the way, did you guys see that they extended Tom Izzo?
Wow, I'm shocked.
The Hizzo.
Wow.
Anyway, Jeremy Bolton says, depth has always been an issue at BYU since the dawn of time. Getting into the Big 12 is going to help with that for the first time. BYU has athletes to hang with anybody, but no depth after that. I think positionally speaking, I don't know that you've ever had more depth at wide receiver. I don't frankly know that you've ever had more depth on offensive line than you've had now, than you have now. I think the linebackers are.
I think you're in a good place. It's very simple. Your starters are going to execute or they're not. Like
Christopher Brooks has to play well.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Peeney. Don't get me wrong. He's not a number one running back. I think we all can agree with that. That's the one. He might be the tipping point. I mean, if Christopher Brooks doesn't stay healthy, that could be a real problem. I think you would have to significantly change what you do on offense. Because I just don't know that Peeney's that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that. He's a great number two. He's a great lightning to your thunder. But we'll see. I think that's interesting. I don't know, man. Secondary depth is my biggest question. That's my biggest question. So we'll see. Let's see. And donuts. I'll take I'll take like a strawberry or a raspberry jelly donut, and
I want it.
Let's go with an apple fritter. The number 10 BYU got hammered by a first-year head coach in OC last year by Boise State in Provo. This year won't be any different in Boise.
We'll see.
Now you come in here like a rain cloud coming over the Oakers.
Sorry if you're offended by that.
Why? It's blue turf. Nobody wins games on blue turf. No, I'm kidding. Well, Boise's always a tough place to play.
Yes.
I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, that's a game that we should go to the Boise game this year.
Yeah, that's a game you should win. It is. Like, if you're legit, you'll win that game.
Yeah. Jeremy Bolton says, Greg, welcome back. Hello. Walter Butler says, listening to BYU football talk, that's how good you guys are. A 50-year Nick fan finds great old school talk radio streaming in Utah.
Just saying.
Look, it's what I always say when I was a supermodel walking the runways of Paris and Milan. They always found me because, this physique and stuff.
Right.
I don't know. I have nowhere to go with that. Nowhere to go with that.
I appreciate that comment, though.
Rant says, I don't know about falling off always in the top 4 or so. Okay. Stephen Guild says, Sparty only team to beat Michigan during the season. They won 11 games last year. Falling off, do you know anything about football? Okay, now it's getting salty. I feel like we're mixing in a little taco seasoning as well to really kick up the heat.
Right.
By the way, I'm going to Red Iguana tonight, so you're not. Let's see. JP Shanahan says, you guys had me in stitches when you answered my question. Look.
Listen, you're going to roll in here and question,
It is not my fault that your mom was a lot lizard in.
I'm sorry, did you say she was a lot lizard?
It vexes me.
Well, we went from bar matron in Casablanca
Terribly vexed.
to circus performer. I don't have a lot of places else to go.
We're in a strange time.
Dude, bro.
What?
So she's all these things, and you still chose to do your thing.
Hey, man, when a dude feeling freaky, you got to get your freak on. Wrap it up, double bag it, do what you got to do.
Double bag it.
And just kind of scruff it and play with it when it's wet.
Bro.
Thanks for wrecking the show, JP. CKS says, but BYU ignores the fact that losing to UAB did matter. It did matter. Yes, it did. Michigan isn't a super team. Georgia beat them. Okay, Jim Harbaugh. Okay, wait. Play the F1, marry one, kill one.
Okay, hang on. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. Jim Harbaugh, Dave Aranda, or Nick Rolovich.
You got to fuck one, marry one, kill one. Go.
I'm probably marrying Dave Aranda. I'm probably killing Nick Rolovich. Damn.
Because I'll drop that mother.
The options are not good for Jim Harbaugh. I am not a Jim Harbaugh fan.
No.
Having covered him when he was with the Niners, the guy's a nightmare. The burnout factor is massive.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think he can win the biggest games. I really don't believe Jim Harbaugh is a big game coach.
Yeah.
I do not. Jeremy Bolton says, losing to UAB didn't matter. Who the F cares? Well, it mattered.
Yeah.
How was that playoff spot last year? Yeah, that's what I thought. Patrick Bourne says Utah healthy won that game. Yeah, I would agree. I think
everybody agrees, dude. It's universally accepted. They would have won the game. And again,
yes.
By the way, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. It was last season, but all I'm here to tell you is that they can do the exact same thing this year. And I think they can do it in a bigger fashion. I think they can make more noise than they were able to make last year. You're talking about a team who almost won the Rose Bowl after players died consecutive years. Like it was a very just emotional.
Kyle Whittingham
heavy.
had 1 foot out the door. Bro was cashing in his 401k. Are you kidding me?
The opposite of full.
The resurrection job on the Hill last year was amazing.
Pack this thing up. We're out of
here. Amazing. Caleb says that no gets me every time. LOL. Yes, it does. It's one of the great drops.
No.
That's Lisa Wilson, Zach Wilson's mom. That's Lisa Wilson's friend on video denying that she's the friend who had sex with Zach. Like, it's amazing. Chris P says Utah won't the Pac-12 when the league was at it. Won the Pac-12 when the league was at its. Who cares?
Yeah, come on.
The league was at its lowest. Who cares? They won the Pac-12. Oh wow, Alabama.
So are we? So you're probably the same guy that's handicapping LeBron's championship in the bubble, right?
Come on.
Come on.
Dead Collector says not only is this a great sports talk show, it's great comedy as well. Thank you.